morning, good afternoon, good evening, lovely people. Welcome back to Minniesmentalhealth. How are you today? Where are you around this globe? Thank you ever so much for joining me on another edition. So on my last video, I spoke about friendship and influence and how that affected me both negatively at first and then positively when I had a good friends. Well, when God blessed me with good friends. So in today's topic, I'm going to be talking about something that's it can be a bit like sporadic. You can take it as sporadic, quite random, but it is a real it can be a real challenge for especially people living in the continent of Europe, coming in from different African countries. Get a lot of people from Carribean countries being affected by this, and it's called SAD, and it's Seasonal Affective Disorder. Basically, it is known as a winter depression. That's what they call it, popularly known, as winter depression. And it happens obviously when, during the winter months in a lot of European countries where, people, children, adults, whoever it may be, is not accustomed to the weather, and it starts affecting their mood. It can affect their appetite. It can affect their ability to engage in normal activities. So usually people who are affected by SAD, Seasonal Affective Disorder, would like to sleep more. They don't really want to do much, and they end up eating a lot more, especially with carbs, when we say winter foods, foods that are comforting, and obviously that can also lead to a lot of weight gain as well. So this SAD is a real issue. Obviously people living in countries where the weather is quite clement, or for example in some West African countries, such as Nigeria or Ghana, they don't really even have a winter, so I'm sure it doesn't affect them that much. But yeah, so how can we help children? So I think the main way is a change of mindset. I remember when I first moved to Manchester to pursue my university degree. I was informed that Manchester is a rainy city. They even call it Rainchester, funnily enough, obviously as a nickname. And I remember going there, and obviously, it was around September time, and it was raining non-stop. And I just I believe obviously by the help of the Holy Spirit, just decided in my heart that the weather would never affect me. I said this rain, which it rains apparently 363 days of the 365 in a year, would never affect me. I wouldn't be stopped by the weather. So that kind of helped me change my mindset towards the rain, and obviously the dark, dreary days where it would be raining, which is most of the year. So that really helped me change how I viewed the weather, and then I would go out a lot more in the rain. And I think that is one good way of helping, especially children, to get accustomed to weather. Let's say you're coming in from an African country or Caribbean country, or even an Asian, Southeast Asian country, for example. It's good to have that mindset, and it starts with obviously deciding in your mind, in your heart, that you're determined, despite the weather. And in England the weather is very intriguing, let me just put it that way. The weather can change, you can have all the 4 seasons in one day, sometimes in the space of an hour. So you kind of have to get over that. If people see it as a challenge, I obviously, by the help of God, overcame that. But for people who are finding it very hard, especially if you're still new to a European country, just I'd say, especially obviously first and foremost to the children, young adults, teenagers, adults, whoever it may be, but my passion, as you know on this channel, is children. It's just to help the children think about why the winter weather is needed, focus on the positives of winter weather. They get to go outside if it's snowing, like if it's a city or country where it snows a lot, they get to play with the snow. They get to eat all the lovely food. They get to spend more time indoors with friends and family. So just focus on the positives, I'd say, about the winter weather. And then there's a popular sort of saying by Alex Wainright, or Mainwright if I'm not mistaken, I think it's Wainwright, who said there's no such thing as bad weather, only unsuitable clothing. So that's another way of sort of changing the narrative about the weather. So it's not so much that, oh, it's raining, oh, it's dark, it's it's cloudy, oh, let me just, it's so easy to feel down and sad and disappointed, especially if you had a lot of plans. But if you just change sort of the way you view the weather, so that you get dressed for the right types of weather, and you just go and do what you are meant to be doing. If it's for the children, if they wanted to go and play, visit friends, they shouldn't be perturbed by the weather, basically. So I'll leave it at that for this topic. What do you think? How do you deal with unfavorite weather? Let me just put it that way. Especially if you're in the UK, tell me please, how do you do it? For me, definitely it's a mindset. How do you deal with the winter weather if winter's not your thing? For some people, they love winter. I remember talking to someone who is from a West African country, and they've never experienced winter, but they love winter and they hate summer. I know a few people like that. So how do you deal with the summer months if you don't like the winter? If you like, the winter weather, how do you deal with the summer months that you don't necessarily like? All right, I'll leave it at that for this video. God bless you. Take care. Have a good day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world, and see you on my next one. God bless. Bye.